I had always liked night buses. Not because they were comfortable. They weren't. The seats were stiff, the windows rattled, and the air always smelled like dust and old fabric. But night buses were quiet, predictable. You got on. You sat down. You watched the road swallow the headlights. Everyone minded their business. That night, I thought it would be the same. It was late August. The rainy season had just started easing off, but the roads were still damp and uneven. I remember the exact time because I checked my phone twice before boarding, 11:47 p.m. I had just finished a short contract job in a neighboring town, about 90 kilometers from where I lived. Nothing fancy. Data entry work for a small logistics company, temporary, boring, safe. The bus terminal was half lit, with flickering fluorescent bulbs buzzing overhead. Most of the shops were closed. One woman sold sachet water from a cooler, her radio playing softly beside her. I bought one, mostly out of habit. The bus heading toward my town was the last one for the night. That alone should have made me more alert. There were maybe 8 of us total. A couple in the back whispering to each other. A man in a reflective vest who looked like he'd just finished a shift. 2 younger guys with backpacks and headphones. And me, middle seat, left side, about 3 rows from the front. The driver was quiet, middle age, no music playing, no small talk. He just checked tickets, nodded, and pulled out of the terminal at exactly midnight. At first, everything felt normal. The road out of town was smooth. Streetlights passed rhythmically. The engine hummed. I leaned my head against the window and watched reflections slide across the glass. My face, the dark road, the occasional oncoming headlights. About 15 minutes in, the first strange thing happened. The bus slowed down. Not suddenly, not aggressively, just enough that I noticed. We were still on the main road, no traffic, no visible potholes. The driver eased off the accelerator and kept going at that slower pace for maybe a minute before picking speed again. I didn't think much of it at the time, but then it happened again and again. Each time, always around the same stretch, after a bend in the road where the trees grew closer together, their branches arching overhead like ribs. No streetlights there, just darkness and the narrow beam of the headlights. The third time it happened, I checked the time, 12:28 a.m. That was when I noticed the man standing by the roadside. He was just there. No reflective clothing, no flashlight, no visible bag. Standing a few meters off the asphalt, close enough that the headlights brushed over him, but not enough to fully light his face. He didn't wave. He didn't move. He just stood there facing the road. The bus slowed again, almost to a crawl, and I felt a tightening in my chest. I watched the man through the window, waiting for him to step forward or signal the driver. He didn't. The driver didn't stop either. He passed him slowly, eyes forward, jaw tight. Once we were past, the bus picked up speed like nothing had happened. I told myself it was someone waiting for another ride, or someone drunk, or someone who'd missed the bus and was hoping. Still, I shifted in my seat. No one else said anything. About 10 minutes later, we passed the same spot again. I knew we shouldn't have. I knew the road didn't loop. But there he was, same posture, same distance from the road, same stillness. This time, the headlights caught his face for half a second longer. I couldn't make out his features clearly, but I remember thinking his expression didn't match the situation. No frustration, no urgency, just a blankness that felt wrong, like someone standing in a photograph. The bus slowed again. I glanced toward the driver. His hands were clenched tight on the wheel. His shoulders were rigid. The man in the reflective vest cleared his throat softly, like he wanted to speak but decided against it. We passed the man again. This time I leaned slightly into the aisle and turned my head to look through the rear window. He didn't turn to follow us with his eyes. He didn't react at all. He stayed facing the road. At 12:52 a.m., the bus stopped. Not at a station, not at a checkpoint, just stopped. The engine idled. The headlights illuminated a stretch of empty road ahead, trees on both sides, no buildings, no signs. The driver reached up and turned off the interior lights. That made my stomach drop. No one asked why. The silence inside the bus felt thick. I could hear my own breathing, the soft creak of someone shifting in their seat. Far away, insects chirring. Then there was a knock. Not loud, not aggressive. 3 soft taps on the bus door. I couldn't see who it was from my seat, but I already knew. The driver didn't move. The knock came again, this time closer together. Tap, tap, tap. Someone in the back whispered, "Driver?" The driver finally spoke, his voice low and strained. "No one answers, no one looks. If he asks questions, stay quiet." The word he landed heavy. The knock came again, slower now, like whoever was outside had all the time in the world. I stared straight ahead, my hands pressed flat against my thighs. My palms were damp with sweat. My heart was pounding so hard it made my ears ring. Then I heard the voice. It wasn't raised, it wasn't threatening. It sounded polite. "Driver," the voice said, "you passed me." No accent I could place, no emotion, just flat. Silence. "I've been waiting," the voice continued. "You passed me twice." The driver's breathing was audible now. "I only need to get to mile 14. Mile 14. My throat went dry. That was my stop. No one moved. The voice stayed quiet for a few seconds, then spoke again, closer to the door. "There are empty seats." I squeezed my eyes shut. The knock turned into pressure, something leaning against the door, not hard enough to shake it, just enough to be felt. "I can stand if needed." I don't know how long it lasted. Seconds felt like minutes. Then abruptly the pressure lifted. Footsteps moved away from the bus, slow, unhurried. After a full minute, the driver turned the interior lights back on and pulled away without a word. No one spoke. When we reached mile 14, the bus didn't slow down. It didn't even hesitate. I stood halfway out of my seat, panic flooding my chest. "This is my stop," I said, my voice barely steady. The driver met my eyes in the mirror. "No stops," he said quietly. "Not tonight." The bus drove on. I got off 2 towns later, somewhere unfamiliar, and walked the rest of the way home along a different road, one I'd never used before. I never took a night bus again, and sometimes when I pass mile 14 during the day, I see scuff marks near the roadside, like someone stood there for a very long time. I moved into that apartment in February, dry season. Harmattan dust still hung in the air, settling on everything no matter how often you cleaned. I remember because my nose was always blocked, and the mornings felt colder than they should have. I just started a new job then, junior supervisor at a warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady, and I needed somewhere close enough to cut down on transport. The building was old but not abandoned looking. 3 floors, faded cream paint, a narrow concrete stairwell in the center instead of elevators. The kind of place where sound traveled easily, doors closing, footsteps, people coughing in their rooms. My apartment was on the 2nd floor. Room 2B, what sold me was the layout. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, bathroom tucked behind it. The living room window didn't face outside, it faced the stairwell. At the time, I thought that meant less noise from the road. I was wrong. The first few nights were quiet, almost too quiet. I worked long hours, came home exhausted, ate late, and slept hard. I barely noticed the building around me. Other tenants kept to themselves. I saw a woman on the 3rd floor sometimes, always on her phone. A young guy downstairs who played music during the day. Nothing strange. The first thing that unsettled me happened on my 5th night there. I woke up suddenly at 2:13 a.m. No nightmare, no sound that I could remember, just awake. My room was dark except for the pale orange glow coming from the stairwell through the living room window. I lay there for a few seconds listening. The building was quiet, no footsteps, no voices. Then I heard it, a slow exhale, not from inside my room, from outside my bedroom door. I held my breath without realizing it. My eyes locked onto the door handle. I waited for another sound. Nothing. I told myself someone had walked past and I'd imagine the rest. Old buildings made noises. Pipes expanded. Air moved. I turned over and forced myself to sleep. The next morning, I forgot about it. A week passed before it happened again. This time, I was still awake. I'd come home late, around 11:30 p.m., and was sitting on the edge of my bed scrolling through my phone. The light was off. I like sitting in the dark sometimes. It helped me unwind. That was when I heard footsteps in the stairwell. Slow, heavy, deliberate. They climbed one step at a time, not rushing, not dragging. I glanced at the time. 12:04 a.m. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. I waited for the sound of another door opening. Any door. None did. Then came the breathing again. Close. Too close. I stood up quietly and moved toward the door, my heart thudding in my chest. I didn't turn on the light. I didn't want whoever it was to know I was awake. I pressed my ear lightly against the door. Silence. I stayed there for nearly a minute, muscles tense, before the footsteps resumed, this time moving upward toward the third floor. I opened the door quickly and looked out. The stairwell was empty. No one. I slept with the light on that night. Over the next few weeks, patterns formed. The footsteps always came between midnight and 3 a.m. They always stopped outside my door. They never knocked. They never went down, only up. I started paying attention to the stairwell during the day. It was narrow, concrete steps worn smooth in the center, a metal railing bolted to the wall. The light fixture buzzed faintly. From my living room window, I could see the entire middle section of it clearly. Nothing unusual. I asked the landlord once, casually, if anyone else lived on my floor. "Just you," he said. "Third floor has one tenant. Ground floor has two." That didn't make sense. Someone was walking past my door almost every night. In March, things escalated. One night, I came home to find a small object placed directly in front of my door. A bottle cap, rusty, bent slightly on one side. I knew it wasn't mine. I didn't drink bottled soda at home. I picked it up, looked around the corridor, then threw it in the trash. The next night, it was back. Same spot, same cap. This time, my stomach twisted. I checked the trash. It was gone. I didn't throw it away again. I left it there. At 1:36 a.m., the footsteps came. They stopped at my door. I watched through the peephole. Nothing. Then very slowly, the bottle cap slid away from my door, scraping softly against the concrete, moving backward toward the stairwell. No hand appeared, just the cap, moving as if pulled by something I couldn't see. I stumbled back, my breath coming fast. I locked the door, even though it already was. That night I didn't sleep. The next morning I noticed something else. A faint smear on the concrete outside my door, like something had been dragged repeatedly along the floor. It led from my door toward the stairs, then disappeared. I started spending more time at work, volunteering for late shifts, coming home exhausted so I could fall asleep quickly. It didn't help. One night in early April, the power went out. Not unusual. It happened often enough that I had a torch in my drawer. I was lying on the couch when everything went dark. Fan cutting off, the stairwell light dying, total darkness. A few seconds later, I heard the footsteps. This time, they were coming down. My heart slammed against my ribs. Step, step, step. They stopped directly outside my living room window. I could see nothing, but I felt watched. Then something tapped on the glass. Once, twice, not a knock, a nail, dragging slowly downward. I didn't move. I couldn't. The tapping shifted toward my bedroom door. Then the handle rattled. Just once, gently, like someone testing it. A voice whispered through the door. "I see you now." I don't remember grabbing my keys. I don't remember unlocking the door. I remember running barefoot down the stairs, my torch shaking in my hand, my breath tearing out of my chest. I didn't stop until I reached the main road. I never went back for my things. The landlord called me weeks later, asking why I'd left without notice. He said the apartment had been empty for a long time before me. "No one stays in 2B, he said, laughing awkwardly. Too many complaints about noises. Sometimes when I close my eyes at night, I still hear footsteps stopping just outside a door. Waiting. If you're ready, say next story, and I'll give you the final one. Darker, tighter, and harder to forget. The third thing that happened to me, the one I don't tell people unless they really insist, took place in November. Not during the rains, not during the dust-heavy Harmattan either. It was that in-between period when the days felt dry and stretched out, and the nights cooled down just enough to make you aware of your own skin. The kind of nights where sound traveled far, and silence felt deliberate. I was driving then. I'd borrowed my uncle's old Corolla for a week. Manual transmission, faded blue paint. The fuel gauge needle didn't always sit right, so you had to keep mental notes of distance. I'd driven that road dozens of times before, an inner-city route connecting two mid-sized towns, about 160 kilometers, mostly straight, mostly empty after dark. I left later than planned. It was 9:42 p.m. when I pulled out of the compound. I remember checking the time because my phone battery was already low, 22%, and I didn't want to stop to charge anywhere unfamiliar. I told myself I'd be fine. I knew the road. I'd done worse drives. The first hour was uneventful. Headlights cut through the dark. Occasional oncoming vehicles flashed past. Small roadside stalls closed for the night. Villages thinned out until it was just trees, brush, and the long stretch of asphalt ahead. Around 10:55 p.m., I passed the last proper fuel station before the halfway point. I considered stopping. I didn't. That decision still bothers me. About 20 minutes later, I noticed the road felt different. Not damaged, not rough, just narrower. The shoulders seemed to pull in, trees pressing closer, their branches leaning over like they were curious. My headlights didn't reach as far as they should have. The darkness ahead felt thicker, less reflective. I slowed slightly. That was when I saw the sign. It was small, hand-painted, nailed crookedly to a wooden post. No through road, local access. Only. I frowned. That sign had never been there. I slowed almost to a stop, my foot hovering over the clutch. The road ahead looked fine. Paved, no barricades, no warning lights. Just darkness stretching forward. I checked my mirrors. No cars behind me. I sat there for maybe 10 seconds, engine idling, listening to it tick and hum. Then I told myself someone had put up a temporary sign for construction that hadn't started yet. I drove on. The moment my tires crossed past the sign, my phone lost signal. Not gradually, not dropping bars. Gone. The clock froze at 11:19 p.m. I remember that clearly. The road continued straight for a while, then curved gently to the right. No lane markings now, just smooth asphalt, darker than before. My headlights seemed to swallow themselves in it. Then I noticed something else. No insects. Usually night driving meant bugs hitting the windshield. Tiny pops, smears. Annoying but normal. There were none. The air felt still, like I was moving through a sealed space. About 5 kilometers in, or at least what felt like 5 kilometers, I saw headlights ahead, parked, on my side of the road. I slowed, heart rate picking up. As I got closer, I realized it was a small pickup truck. Hazard lights off, engine dead. Its doors were open, driver's side hanging wide. No one inside. I stopped a few meters away and turned off my engine. The silence that followed felt heavy. I got out, keys still in my hand, and called out, "Hello?" My voice sounded wrong out there. Too loud, like it didn't belong. No answer. I walked closer. The truck looked old, scratched, dust-coated. Inside, the seats were worn. A water bottle lay on its side in the footwell, still half full. The hood was cold, not overheated, not broken down recently. I stepped back, uneasy, and that was when I noticed the footprints. They led away from the truck, not toward the bushes, not toward the road behind, straight ahead, down the road I was on. They were faint but visible, dusty impressions on the asphalt, as if someone had walked there barefoot earlier that evening. I followed them with my eyes until they faded into darkness. I didn't follow them. I got back into my car, locked the doors, and drove around the truck carefully. As soon as I passed it, my headlights flickered. Once, twice, then stabilized. I laughed nervously to myself, trying to shake the tension. Old wiring, nothing more. 5 minutes later, the road ended. Not abruptly, it simply stopped. The asphalt thinned out and dissolved into dirt. Not a junction, not a fork, an ending. I braked hard, dust kicking up around the car. My chest tightened as I stared ahead. There was no sign, no barrier, just dirt road continuing into trees. I reversed slowly, heart pounding, expecting to hit asphalt again within seconds. I didn't. I reversed for nearly a minute before panic set in. The road behind me was dirt too. I turned the car around fully. Both directions were the same. I got out again, my torch shaking slightly as I scanned the ground. The asphalt was gone. In its place was packed earth, tire marks layered over older ones, as if vehicles had been driving this dirt road for years. My stomach dropped. I checked my phone. No signal. Battery at 14%. The time still read 11:19 p.m. I got back in the car and drove forward, slower now, eyes straining for any familiar landmark. That was when I saw the house. It stood alone on the right side of the road. Single story, concrete walls, no paint. One light on inside. A motorcycle leaned against the wall, its front tire sunk slightly into the dirt. I slowed, then stopped. The light flickered. The front door opened. A man stepped out. He looked ordinary, middle-aged, slender, wearing a sleeveless undershirt and slippers. He raised his hand in greeting. Relief flooded me so fast it made my hands tremble. I rolled down the window just enough to speak. "Sorry," I said. "I think I missed the main road." He nodded slowly. "You did," he said. His voice was calm, flat. "Can you tell me how to get back?" I asked. He stepped closer to the car, stopping just short of my headlights. "You can't go back the way you came," he said. My stomach tightened again. "Why?" He looked past me, down the road behind my car. "They don't like it when people turn around." I laughed weakly. "Who?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped back and pointed down the dirt road ahead. "Drive," he said. "Slowly. Don't stop. If you hear someone calling you, don't answer." A cold wave ran through me. "How far?" I asked. He shrugged. "Depends how well you listen." I rolled the window back up. As I drove past his house, I glanced sideways. The light inside flicked off. The motorcycle was gone. The road narrowed further. Trees crowded in. My headlights barely kept the darkness at bay. Then I heard it. A voice, calling my name. Not shouted, spoken gently from somewhere off to the left. I didn't answer. My throat burned as I swallowed hard, hands gripping the steering wheel. The voice came again, closer, then from the right, then from behind me, each time saying my name like it knew me, like it expected me to respond. My fuel light came on. The car began to jerk slightly. I didn't stop. After what felt like forever, the dirt road abruptly turned back into asphalt. Streetlights appeared ahead. Real ones. I burst out onto a main road, nearly swerving into traffic. I pulled over at the first busy junction and sat there shaking, tears running down my face without me realizing. My phone buzzed. Signal restored. Time, 12:07 a.m. When I finally reached my destination, I checked the map history. There was no road where I'd driven, no detour, no alternative route. Just a straight line where nothing should have been. I returned the car the next morning without saying anything. Sometimes when I drive at night and see a road sign that doesn't quite look right, I slow down, and I keep driving straight, because I still don't know what would have happened if I'd stopped.